Right, picture the scene. A young Andrew Owen, probably, I don't know, 13, 14, got to an age where my mum, was allowing me to watch films of a certain type. And, I don't get me wrong, I'd seen probably quite a lot of films prior to this age anyway. But I was starting to be allowed to record any film I wanted from TV. And I always remember Akira coming on Channel 4. And I hadn't heard much about it, but a couple of people had said to me, there's this, animated film. It's very violent. Check it out, record it. So I always remembered it coming on Channel 4, recording it, and then watching it for the first time. And it would have been my first sort of exposure to, the manga style animation. Never had any sort of affiliation with the cartoon, the comics previously before that. But I tell you now, from that day, I love this film. To the moment I saw it. The fact that it was as violent as it was, and the fact that I hadn't seen anything like this previously. I'm trying to rack my brains that of anything close to it I would have seen. There's a
at the time, you mean?
At the time, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, and I'm thinking animated now, not like films. A lot of what I watched before that animated was Disney. Possibly the closest I ever watched was, is it Sovereign of the Damned, which was a cartoon about Dracula, but it was one of Marvel's first films. We have had this conversation. We haven't.
When is the Rewind the Movies on that film coming up?
Well, yeah, it's on YouTube. We need to watch it. But yeah, I would go as far as saying that this film is, and I would have used this word at the time, I reckon, but it's totally badass. I loved it.
Oh yeah.
But iconic. I will admit I didn't fully understand it when I first watched it. And I'm not entirely sure I fully understand it now. And I've seen this film hundreds of times. Well, maybe not hundreds, but definitely tens of times.
I'm going to go along with you, but because I'm certain, right? I am 90% certain that the recording that you had was the same version that I actually happened to stay up and watch. Because I think I remember definitely Channel 4, and it was about 11 o'clock, and I was flicking the 4 channels we had at the time, because I had just finished watching something, I think. And the opening of the bomb going off in the center of Tokyo. I remember seeing that, and I remember thinking, obviously noticing it was a cartoon and thinking, what's a cartoon doing on this late? And that bomb going off, and I was thinking, right, okay, I'm intrigued here. So I watched for, I think I said, not necessarily said it to myself, but I was like, I would normally have given it like 5 minutes or something. And obviously the bike chase happens, and you've got, that bike is just the best looking bike ever.
It's a unit.
Yeah, it's amazing. But what got me hooked on the film, and the reason I stayed up till about 1 o'clock in the morning on a school night to watch it when I was about, what did we say we were, 13 or 14, was the scene where the guy is dragging one of the numbers through the streets, and he gets mowed down by all those bullets. And I remember at the time being like, oh my God, I've got a violent animated film here. I am watching this. And like you, I hardly understood anything that was going on, but I was intrigued and I enjoyed it immensely. And it's gone on to become like one of my, I would say it was one of my favorite films up to a certain time.
I think the problem I had is I watched it then, but then I probably didn't watch it again for a long time. So maybe like you, I didn't record it. I'm just trying to think back. Maybe I just watched it on TV, because I definitely didn't watch it for a number of years. And it wasn't until my later teens that I watched it again.
Yeah.
Come on, Ad. This is sort of your genre, surely.
Oh,
You
yeah.
love this shit.
So I didn't see this when I was a kid. I saw it as a teenager for the first time, but just for anime, I'll tell you when I first saw the poster though. So like when I was a kid, I don't know if you guys used to do this as well, but on like a Saturday or whatever, I'd go to town with my nan, and like we'd always go to like a catalogue shop or like Woolworths or something. And did you guys used to just run over to the video section to look at the cartoons? Well, I always remember I used to go look at what cartoons they had on video, like Turtles and Ghostbusters and all that, and what films. And then suddenly I started seeing cartoons with 15 certificates and being like, what are these by here? And like, we're talking about films like Street Fighter 2, 18 rated ones like Urotsuka Doji, which is like a hentai, like anime porn, basically. And this one was always there as well. Like, I always just remember him on the bike. It was him doing that back skid on his bike on the front cover.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this? I was like, and my nan would always be like, oh no, we're not buying them because they're too expensive and stuff like that. And like,
I wasn't, again, we need to hark back to your childhood here. It wasn't because of the rating, it was because of the expense of them.
They were always £10. I always remember they were like £10 or £15 on video. My nan would be like, no, we're not doing that. So we'd always buy something like Samurai Pizza Cats or for like £3 or something. And I'd be like, I don't want Samurai fucking Pizza Cats. I want Akira. I would just
Samurai Pizza Cats, an actual cartoon.
Yeah. So
is it really?
I've only just made that
on
up.
the spot.
No, Samurai Pizza Cats is. I always remember getting that from the video. I always remember the day when I wanted Street Fighter 2 and I had Samurai Pizza Cats, and like, which actually is also an anime. It's actually an anime as well. But I just remember that. A bit of a deep cut. But look, by the way, to anyone listening to this right now, go and listen to the theme song and watch the YouTube video theme song for Samurai Pizza Cats, one of the best cartoon openings of all time. But yeah, many years later, a friend of mine, when I was in school, he was like a year or two above me in school, and he was actually going to the college and doing the media studies course I would go on to do later on. He told me what an anime was because there was nobody into it. He said to me, I watch anime, and I was like, what's anime? And he was like, it's just. He also hated people calling them cartoons. He would be like, no, they're not cartoons, they're anime. He'd be like all the time, even though they're kind of are cartoons. But yeah, I always remember like I went to his house one day after school or whatever, when I was hanging out, and he had like loads of these anime manga films on his shelf, and he lent me this in a duo box in the remember the double cassette boxes you used to get back in the day? He had a double box of this, and I remember watching it. I probably would have been about 14, and just like Andrew and yourself, I was like, that was amazing, but I don't know what the hell that was. I have no idea what any of that was about, but I kind of kept going back to it and back to it over the years. And yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite films of all time. I huge influence this one is, and it seems to always be like everyone's first gateway anime movie. Whenever you speak to like big anime fans, this is always one of the big first.
It was one of the first films of that sort of genre that made it mainstream, wasn't it?
Yeah, like this. You had like this. What's the other one that came out? No, it didn't. It came out many years later, but at the
Ghost
same
in the
time,
Shell.
Yeah, I saw Ghost in the Shell at the same time. And then I'd seen Street Fighter 2 before this as well. That was the first ever anime I saw, is the Street Fighter 2 film. But yeah.
Do you know
Ghost
what
in the Shell's
really
another
threw
big-
me, I think, for years? That the film is called Akira, but the main character in it, Kaneda. I always thought for years like he was Akira and the film was about him, but it's not. It's about this other being.
Well, that's what I always thought when because I used to look at it, I'd be like, oh, well, you just kind of think, oh, that's Akira. His name's on the box, but then no, it's the sort of the reason World War III happened in this universe, isn't it, and stuff. He's like the super psychic monster.
Can I ask you? You're an animator. Would you say this is one that heavily influenced you into going into animation, or is it more to do with the South Park and Simpsons and stuff?
Well, first off, I mean, like for the animation, I'm not. I even though I do animate stuff, I'm not like, I don't consider myself a pro animator because I kind of, it's sort of like, it's crappy sort of like cartoons and stuff. But the influence of the animation for me was always like internet cartoons and like Flash cartoons and things like South Park and stuff. There's no way. I mean, there's no way on this earth I could sit down and make something as good as Akira. No chance. Like, that is groundbreaking animation in this. I mean, I would go on a limb and say this. I mean, if anyone listening wants to give me a better example, and I've seen a lot of Studio Ghibli stuff and a lot of like other animes over the years, and I'm not saying there's not ones that are nearly as good, but I think this is probably the best animated 2D animated film I've ever seen, and this was made like 33 years ago.
Do you know what? If you're talking about just 2D animation,
yeah,
because some of the animated films that come out, certainly from Asia now, where they haven't, it's not retrofitted, but what's the stuff they use as well as 2D?
3D, I guess, like
yeah.
CGI?
What's that film that I told you to watch? Is it Your Name?
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah, do you know the asteroid scene in that?
Yeah, but that's like 3D animation, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. They include 3D animation in it, don't they? Yeah. So if you're talking about simply 2D animation, yeah, I go along with you. Akira is the best film I've watched.
Like I know Studio Ghibli and like Miyazaki always gets props and stuff, but I'm like, what's that?
And rightly so, because they look amazing.
And like that film Jinron that came out a couple, I showed you the one time when they're in the sewers and stuff.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah.
they look amazing. But like I don't know, but Akira just looks like, I don't know. It's like it's so fluid. Like everything's always moving.
I'll tell you what it is with Akira. I'll give you one word: vibrant.
Absolutely.
It's the every scene or image it pops, doesn't it?
But do you know why though? Because they use something like 300 and when I got my notes here, 327 different colors throughout the film. And an animated film would never do that in that time. Anyway, I don't know if what today's sort of market is, but
do you think as well though that I don't know if we've already answered it, but do you think because we were so used to Disney, and
it was just so different though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So different to Disney. You know, we would, we'd never come across anything like that.
I'm going to say something really like, no, I like Disney films. I'm a big fan of Disney films. But what I will say with this film as over Disney films is so fucking atmospheric. This film is. I mean,
yeah,
you are really in that world when you watch this. You are like, you feel like you're in that post-apocalyptic Japan, and I think that's something that this film really makes use of the doing things you can't do with 2D animation. If you know what I mean?
Like, I'm going to say one thing about the film, and you could put this down as one of the good aspects. I suppose the animation style is already a good aspect that we're touching upon. But another thing is as well, is that even though it's, as we've said, vibrant and it pops and it looks amazing, there's still a grittiness to it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like go on.
But also though, the film is like 99% set at night. So because it's got that darker tone to it, and that's one of the reasons why they use so many different colors, that I just think it adds to it. You know, that grittiness of it being at night, the fact they've had to use so many different colors, which, like you say, make it pop and make it vibrant, it's gonna have a lasting effect in it.
Yeah. It's just it's just, it looks outstanding, and like we'll get onto sort of issues with it, because I'm just going to say there are a couple of issues with the film, which I know
I've got one massive issue with it, but we'll get to it.
But they're not. But don't worry, listeners, it's not that bad of a deal. You know, don't think we're going to shit on the film too much. But I'll save that for later on and use the animation as an example later in the podcast, I guess.
Well, I'll move on to favorite aspect then, and we've mentioned a couple of it or a couple of things already. I'll jump on there, but two things for me: the graphic nature of it at the time when I watched it was, wow, this is amazing. I've never seen anything like it before, and to a certain degree, and don't get me wrong, I have seen things like it, and we touched on it. I still think the look of the film holds up today, and we've mentioned already it is 33 years since it, 33, 34 years old. Come on.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. But also just like the graphic nature of it, the fact that right at the very beginning of the film, something's happening. You think, oh, what's going on here? All of a sudden, two dogs, boop, boop, get popped off right in front of you, and you think, whoa, whoa, whoa. One, you never see like animals getting killed, or you sort of see them getting killed, but not in the way that you just see them getting shot between the eyes at the beginning of this film.
Yeah.
And then the other thing for me is the score. I think the score is brilliant.
Score's amazing.
I swear to God, when I watch this film, other films have kind of copied the score a little bit in parts. Because like some of the score sounds really familiar from other films. I'm like, I just think some other films have been inspired by it quite a lot, like especially the more slower parts.
What other aspects of people got?
Like we touched upon it in the opening talk, but I do like how fucking unforgiving this film is. I mean, we talk about stakes in a movie, you know, no one's safe in this film. And like some of it, I quite like the fact that it just veers into like how it just kind of becomes a fucking horror movie by the end of it. That girl getting crushed by the big blob monster at the end is horrifying. When that poor girl is in the blob going no, and she just gets crushed alive. It's great stuff. But my favorite well, no, we're doing favorite aspects, not favorite scenes. But I don't know. It's just I love Canada. I think he's a brilliant lead character as well. I think that's a great lead character in a movie, and I love his and Tetsuo's sort of like brotherly relationship. I know even at the end, Tetsuo still can't find it within himself to like kill Canada, even though he easily can do it. I don't know. I really like that. I really like that aspect to it.
Tatsuo, right? Do you reckon he looks a little bit like Ant from Ant and Dec?
He does
with
it.
A massive forehead.
He does at the end, yeah, when his forehead's bulging because he has psychic powers.
Are you saying Akira is the alternate universe version of Ant and Dec?
Well, it might be.
Do you think
Japanese version?
Do you think Ant from Ant and Dec could ever do that? If he ever walks out on Saturday Night Project with a red cape on, I'm gonna get to the nearest airport. I think.
I was watching it and I was just thinking, yeah. And I had that moment where I was thinking, right, okay, which one's Ant and which one's Dec, and which one's the one with the massive forehead? So.
Oh, he's such a cock though, and he Tetsuo. You're just like, mate, you're a dick.
Yeah, but we were discussing this last night when I think initially his relationship with Canada has come to a point where he's almost like trying to be defiant, isn't he? Trying to say, no, I can look after myself. It's almost like he's thrown his toys out the pram. But I think when he starts getting these powers, I don't think it's that attitude he's now got. He's got that attitude, but it's amplified because I think he's just going absolutely insane because of what's happening to him.
Let me ask you a question, right? And I'm going to frame this with you and Andrew because you went to school together and you're quite close friends.
Quite close. Quite.
You have let's pretend that you're in comp or whatever now, and you have that motorbike or something close to that motorbike in Akira. Andrew's been off school for a couple of days. You look out the window and Andrew's just riding off on your bike. What do you think? Remember the big pinching his bike? I was like, what a dick. Can't pinch his bike.
Well, the thing is, Andrew wouldn't just pinch my bike. He'd come into the class, he'd go, Prog, can I borrow your bike? And I'd be like, yeah, go on then if you want.
If you looked at the window and he just took your bike and was riding off of his miss.
Do you know the thing is with that scene?
Like that.
The thing is with that scene, though, where's the keys for the bike?
He must just leave them in the. He must just
leave them in the bike.
But I think he's so feared, no one will nick that bike.
But this is the thing I have with the film, right? He's supposed to be like 14, 15, maybe a little bit older if that. And they're like, a gang who go up against what I can only imagine are adults dressed as clowns.
That's the thing. That's the thing in Japanese movies. They love teenage gangs. They love things like there are so many Japanese films in anime where there's like a rogue teenage gang of hoodlums and they're your main characters. They love that. They love that trope so much. They just love it.
Yeah, you're up against like a Yakuza or something, and yeah, you're a 15-year-old gang member.
But then again, in Japan, you're in high school till you're 20, so they could be 18, 19.
Are they?
I don't know, but I'm just saying they could be that old because you're in school much longer in Japan. In I'm pretty sure school's Monday to Saturday in Japan.
Oof.
Monday to Saturday, and it's 8 till 6 p.m. Rough. That's rough, isn't it? from the age of 5 until you're 20. That's it. Every day.
Different work ethic over there, though.
Yeah, that's what
Not like us lazy shits.
They go off and make films like Akira, and we go off and make films like The Bloody Veil. No wonder.
Hey, you ask people which one they'd rather watch, but
exactly.
Akira.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe we should make that a poll on Twitter. Which would you rather watch, The Veil or Akira? And then get really upset when we see the results coming in. No, it's like just one of my favorite aspects. I think
I like how it mashes loads of different genres together.
Yeah,
like you've got the not supernatural, but you got the science fiction elements with the children and the ESP and what's happening to Tetsuo. You've got the almost urban gang violence of Canada and his gang, and then obviously we've touched upon the the violent nature of the film as well. But yeah, I just like that there's so many different things happening within the film, and I know that's got to do with them having to whittle down. How many pages did you say the manga was, or how many novels of the manga with it?
There's six installments to the manga. Each one is about 400 pages long. So what's 400 times 6?
2,400.
Yeah, 2,400 pages.
But when this was
roughly.
When this was produced, they hadn't finished the manga series, then, had they?
No.
It's a bit like
I think
Game
the story.
of Thrones.
The story goes is that they went up. The manga was very popular, and if you anyone listening right now, and to you guys as well, go on Google sometime and just type in Akira manga artwork, because the artwork in the manga is outstanding. It's amazing. That's another favorite aspect I want to get onto. It's just the artwork and the background design of this film, because Katsuhiro Otomo I think he's one of the great comic artists, man. He's outstanding. But anyway, the story goes is that there was a lot of interest in making an anime of this, and I think Katsuhiro Otomo had kind of worked in the anime realm a couple of times already, and I think he'd seen other people's mangas getting kind of weirdly adapted, and I think he was, because he kind of had this on his side, the fact this is a very popular manga. He kind of went, okay, you can make it as long as I can, be the creative force behind the film as well, and I think that's what led him to being the writer and director and the sort of auteur behind the movie, basically. And I think I'm really happy he got to make the film, because I don't think the film would be near as good without him behind the driving seat, without him in the driving seat, basically.
Yeah.
Moving on to favourite scene then, and I may as well give mine first. I quite like what I can only describe as the hallucination scene. Within the hospital where the toys are coming to life.
That was going to be mine as well. I love that.
Oh, it's brilliant. You got the bear, the rabbit, and the car, which are the representation of the what they call the three old liquors. Yeah, numbers. But just like the background music and the score and just the sounds and just the way it looks, I think it's a standout scene, definitely.
That song in that scene, I used to have a mixed CD years ago full of just chilled out music, and that was on my mixed CD of chilled out music. So when I just used to sit down in my room and just listen when I'd be playing PlayStation 2 or something with a CD playing, like a CD-ROM or CDR in the back, and that song would always come on in the middle of it. I fucking love that. I love that bit of music on that scene. Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. That's it, innit? It's just that over and over again.
Oh, it's brilliant. And it's very different, I think, to the other bits that you see prior in the film. So the film is, and Prog's touched upon it already, the film has a number of different aspects in it, or draws a number of different sort of genres. But up until that point, you don't really get that sort of manga-esque type look, if you get what I mean. Japanese films, they go for the surreal, they go for the weird at times. And I'm just thinking, and Prog will know, I am a fan of Studio Ghibli things. I'm not a massive fan, but I love when those just go fucking off the wall.
Yeah.
And that sort of you think, fucking hell, I might trip in here because of some of the stuff I'm seeing. But yeah, that element is by far my favorite scene in the film.
I've got a few favorite scenes I can write to go through, but I'm going to start off with the opening bike chase. Come on, that's one of the. I got a cool story behind that as well. Like when I was doing my teacher training, because I was going off to teach on a media course, I had to do like a sort of media lesson. So I made like a half an hour lesson about animation. And the thing was, my classroom, it was like a sort of demo class. It was like other people trying to be teachers. So it was a bunch of like people like my age in their 20s and their 40s and stuff. And most of them have never seen anime before. And I showed that scene as an example in my lesson. And like four or five people afterwards are like, what was that film from? Like they wanted to go and watch it themselves because they were like, when you first started doing your lesson and started talking about anime and animation, I wasn't that interested, but that film scene was fucking amazing. And they went off and watched Akira because of just that one scene. So I think that's really awesome. But yeah, it just really gets you into the film, that scene does as well. And the music on that scene is.
But it goes back to what we said earlier, and I think this film is a bit of a gateway film into the genre. Oh, yeah. And it's a perfect example of, you know, it's taken the genre and done it so well that, yeah, I can fully understand why it would be people's first film. Absolutely. And then they get hooked on other aspects of it.
Absolutely.
What else have we got, lad?
Well, I won't give too many because I think I'm going to leave some for Prog's. But my other favorite scene of this film is at the ending when he goes into like Tetsuo stroke Akira, and he starts seeing Tetsuo's memories. I don't know why, but I love that scene when it's just like when it's just all quiet and it's just like all them riding around their bikes before everything went to shit basically, and you see all the flashbacks to when they were in school. I absolutely I get goosebumps when that scene comes on. I don't know what it is about those scenes, but they just really like, I don't know, they just kind of stir some emotion in me. I love them.
What have you got, Prog?
Well, my favourite scene is the scene that got me into the film when I was younger, and it's the guy trying to get one of the numbers away from the military.
Takashi.
Yeah, and he's dragging him through the city and confronted by all those police officers, and he shoots the dogs, and then he points a gun at them, he's just trying to shoot the lights, but then they shoot him, and they say there's a kid there, and the kid just walks off to the side, and then they mow that guy down, and the kid like screams, and then the buildings, all the glass shatters, and something comes off the side of the building. And I just love that at the moment, that what they do is they just tease the sort of science fiction element for you, or certainly for me. And like, that is my hook every time I watch the film. I do really like the bike chase or fight, whatever you want to call it. I think it looks incredible. But what actually gets me into the story is what's happening with them trying to free Takashi. And then from there, I'm just in the film then.
What I love about it is you know something's happening because he's trying to get that, what you think is a child away.
Yeah.
But then you see the child and it's got a really old face, and you're just intrigued. You're like, well, what's going on? And you want to know more.
Yeah, it's like Adam when he haven't got a beard.
Whatever. No, like they're quite creepy, aren't they? Those little kids.
Mm.
So the one thing I wanted to ask, and I may have missed this, so what's the age, or what's the time difference between when they're having the experiments done on them?
Well, they were children when Akira was a child as well. So they were around when Akira was first around.
And because of Akira, that's when the first atomic bomb went off?
Yeah, Akira was the bomb, I think.
All right.
So they're 31 years older then, because it's like the film starts in 88, and then it's like 2019. So they'd be like, God, those
kids are nearly 40, but they still look like kids. And I think the reason they still look like kids is because of the abilities that they have.
Yeah.
So are you saying then that they're 40 when the bomb goes off?
No.
The
Oh,
No,
kids.
they're 40 in the film.
Okay.
But they're all looking 40-year-olds, aren't they? I'll say all right now.
Well, but their growth and maturity has been stunted, most probably because of the powers and abilities they have, but also because the environment they've been brought up in.
Yeah, but they look old. They look haggard in the face, don't they? They look much
Yeah.
older. Like you guys don't have faces like that.
Not yet. No.
Baby faces, me in Prague.
But like they must have.
I've looked my age for 20 years.
Wow.
If you had a HD camera on me right now, I'd look really old.
You'd look like Zelda out of Terrorhawks, wouldn't you?
That's just gone straight over Adam's head.
No,
No,
I
we saw
showed
that.
him it. I showed him it the other day.
I used to love Terrorhawks, but fuck me, Zelda used to put the shits at me.
Yeah, I know what.
Oh.
What we on? Favorite scenes, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can knock a couple of others off if you want.
To be honest, there's loads of things I can go through there, but I love.
I'm with you. Like, there's so many
like the
things
sewer,
that are good in this film.
like the sewer chase scenes and stuff. Like I love it when like I love it. I love the scene when like Tetsuo first breaks out of the lab.
Yeah.
And he's in the air going, "Whoa, I can fly" and stuff like that. I know the dialogue's a bit corny, and we'll get into that in changes, but like, you know, man, there's so much of this film I love, man. Like, there are a couple of bits where it's a bit slow and it does drag a little bit, but like, again, we'll get onto that when I think there's a way that could have been fixed, and we'll get onto that when we get the changes. But like, aside from that, the film is just like, the film is it's 99.9% fire.
Come on, and we may as well move on to changes.
Can I go first?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, right. So the one major change I have, and I can't help it, right? But there is so much exposition in the dialogue that now and again it just switches me off from the film.
Yeah, but I'm not saying you're wrong, but that is sort of like what you go with. I think that's just from the fact it's a manga. Because
I'm not disputing that, right? And if that's inherent in anime and manga culture, or the writings of manga, I'm not going to say they need to change it all. I'm just saying when I watch the film, I don't need that crap.
It's funny, right? Because one of my changes also is that the film also needs some explaining. There are times in that film I don't know what's fucking happening.
Yeah, it does need. I agree, right? It's a fine line, isn't it? I agree it needs some explaining, but the kind of exposition that they're putting in, it's just so. They may as well have one of the characters turn to the camera and say, "This is for you."
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, it's so on the nose expositional. There's almost like, and I don't know whether this is just because of the dubbing or the way the British or English language translations come across, but it's so on the nose trying to explain to viewers what's going on. It just comes across to me like they almost, and I know this isn't the case, but it just feels to me that they almost can't be bothered to try and write it realistically into the script or the story.
Maybe that's just a thing. Like we talked about it when we did Mad Max. Katsuhiro Otomo, outstanding artist and storyteller, but maybe like just writing dialogue wasn't his, and he was the writer and director. Maybe that just wasn't his strong suit.
Yeah,
but like, you find it a lot in anime. You find that a lot in anime though. Like sometimes, like, but not all anime, because I can give some examples of anime that have brilliant dialogue.
Well, like, there's one element of the exposition that sits okay with me, and it's when Kyoko, the female number.
Yeah.
It's when she uses K to get to Tetsuo.
Yeah.
And she's explaining to K, she's almost talking to K like, we've got to do this, this, and this because of this. And I'm like, I'm all right with that happening because Kay doesn't know what's going on, or Kay needs to know certain things in order to perform or act a certain way. I'm okay with that, even though that's still exposition. That exposition is excusable because the character itself needs to know it.
Yeah.
but there are too many times where the characters seem to be talking to each other and the dialogue isn't for the purpose of that character, it's for the audience itself. And I don't like that type of dialogue. It just, I never have and I never will.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to say manga, innit?
Yeah.
Anime, innit? Anime, if you're in it, boy.
What have you got, lad?
Oh, can
Right.
I also say one more? Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
Tetsuo and Canada just shout at each other all the way through the film.
No, that's just Japanese films, man.
I've got it down as my notes as well. I
Yeah.
said all anime characters seem to just shout a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just anime, Japanese films as well. Like, I don't know what it is with Japanese filmmakers that are just like, these two characters need to fucking belt it out at each other right now and scream at one another.
I
But
just think back to like
I
Pokemon
love it.
cartoon as well.
Oh yeah.
They always just shout at each other.
The only films I can think about that don't do it, like, because one of my top 5 directors, and this guy's films, some of his films are in my top films of all time. There's an anime director called Satoshi Kon, and he's dead now. He died really young. He was only about 40 odd, and he died. But like he only made about 5 films. But his films are very realistic, and when you watch them, they are like films. They're not like anime. They're like movies. The characters talk. The characters have very realistic dialogue. They live very realistic lives, and there's none of this like like at each other all the way through. It's very subdued and stuff, and they work brilliantly. So anime can go without those shouting at each other things.
I'd be interested to rewatch Ghost in the Shell because I don't remember that being shouty.
No, that's not. It's not that shouty either. That's very philosophical and again subdued, and there's exposition in it. Yes.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be exposition in that though, because it's quite complex. The story is, but there's none of this like. Also, Akira has the goofy anime stuff to it as well. Like they have like Canada when he's like got his hair swept back and he's doing like when the kids are all walking around with each other and they're slapping each other across the head and stuff. It has that goofy anime vibe to it sometimes. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm explaining myself quite well, but that sort of humor it loves, and I like that stuff. But like, it's just, I guess it's like a sign of the time it was made in, basically. Because like we were talking about films, Ghost in the Shell and Perfect Blue and stuff. Those all came. Those are all like a decade later. So maybe
would you say that the anime films that you've watched lately, that have come out lately, they don't sort of have those elements as much anymore?
Some of them do. Like Your Name has it a bit. Like I think Your Name had it, like the goofy anime joke, and I love Your Name.
No, sorry, but I was on about the expositional.
No. That's slid away. That it's over the years. That is. I think it's because like anime wasn't a brand new medium at this point, because they've been making anime throughout the 50s and stuff, but I think it was very like localized to Japan in the 80s. The only animes you got coming over here then were like Speed Racers and stuff before Akira, and I think it's just a symptom of just like being like quite early adopters, quite early ones coming out. They hadn't quite like figured through. Like it's like when you watch a film from the 50s, man. We talked about this earlier today with Tom. Like when you watch a film from the 50s, they kind of the dialogue's on like it's like a different sort of vibe to it. You know what I mean? It's weird. It's very strange. But a change I want to bring up though, and this is quite a weird one to bring up. I reckon this film would be better if it was way longer. And like I know that sounds a bit weird to say, but I think this is one of the few films I wish was like an extra hour long, or was like 2-hour films, so like a 4-hour story or something, because the manga is huge, and you can kind of tell when you watch the film where they're skipping things out. And I think that's when it gets a bit confusing. My brother has read all of the comics, and my brother was telling me once that like the comics are there's way more going on. And he said things like, no, that character, which is like, he's like that spiritual guy, and he's praying, and he's got the round glasses on and the big like wig and stuff on, and he's wearing the Fudo. My brother said there's like chapters and chapters all about him in the comics. And it goes way past the end of the film when they ride off into the sunset. There's more stuff about what happens after. And my brother, who's a bigger anime fan and manga fan than I am, he likes the film, but he takes big issue with how much they just breeze past. And he says, when you watch the film, he says, but you can tell with it's like half of the first book or the first book is like the first like 40 minutes, and then they rush through like 6 books, like bam, 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 bam. And then the last part of the film is like the 5th comic. And he says it's very weird to watch the film after you've read the comic books. We should have got him in this podcast. He would have been able to explain that much more. But
Do you think they'll be able to sort that out when they do the live action film?
no, absolutely not. I reckon they'll make the live action film like a goofy comedy, like a Marvel sort of movie or something. I reckon if you're gonna make this again, just make like a TV series of it. And I'm not saying don't make a live action, but like I just don't see why you wouldn't just make like a TV show of it, man. Because there's so much material with it. Make something that can be like 5 seasons long or something, or 6 seasons, and make each book like a mini series or something. You know, better if it's an anime, in my opinion. But
Well, that's the way things are going these days. Now, it's there is a push now to make some form of streaming series, and the sort of the novelization of it, or the manga version of it, is there. So why wouldn't you?
And also, I don't get why they have to make it American as well. I mean, fucking that Squid Games, I know it's Korean, not Japanese, but that Squid Games has done massive business on Netflix. Why not just make a Japanese series with Japanese actors, like it should be, and then just put that on Netflix? People will take watching subtitled films and stuff now. They will. And you could even make an animation. I mean, look at that Attack on Titan. That did massive numbers on Netflix, and that's an anime, even though I've never watched it. Just saying.
Well, they contemplated a live action version of it in the 90s, didn't they? But the budget supposedly skyrocketed to something like 300 million. So they canned it.
Right now, they're making it with Taika Waititi attached to it. He was a good director. I think he's a really cool director. But I don't think he's going to do this any justice. You know what I mean?
Well, as soon as you say his name, the comedy element of it stands out for me. And I'm like,
again, hey, but like then I remember when before Joker came out and Todd Phillips was behind it, and I like Todd Phillips, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
Why is he doing that? And then all of a sudden Joker comes out, and I'm like, that's fucking amazing. So, Taika Waititi, maybe he will make it. Maybe, he'll come out in 3 or 4 years' time with this Akira film, and I'm like, wow, that is Akira. Fuck the anime. It could happen.
It could happen, yeah. It could happen.
But I highly doubt it. I reckon just make a TV series off it. That's what they should do. Because there's too much story to tell in 2 hours. There's just too much story. There's too much lore to it and stuff. It's like, imagine trying to make like Star Wars 1, 2, and 3 a 90-minute movie. Like all of them crash into one film. It would just be weird,
Probably could.
Yeah, you probably actually could, yeah. You probably could.
I think they did, didn't they? Wasn't that the first film back of the new trilogy?
Well, Attack of the Clones should have only been 4 minutes long. I'm going to say that right now.
Yeah. Attack of the Clones should have just been the hanging of Jar Jar Binks, and then they should have moved on.
Everyone's wanking and clapping, and then the film just ends. I actually, sorry to go veer into Star Wars, right? But I'm just going to put this out there right now. I actually quite like Episode 1. I know everyone hates that film. And maybe you two hate it more than I will, because you were much more into Star Wars when you were kids, but I quite like Episode 1.
I'm going to say no. I don't hate number 1.
Yeah.
I hate elements of number 1.
The only Star Wars film I really like from the old trilogy is Empire Strikes Back. I'm not bothered about the first and third one. I like Empire Strikes Back. Return of the Jedi is okay. When I've gone back and watched Star Wars, I'll never watch the first one on a rewatch because I find it quite boring. The first ever one.
How dare you?
I love them all. I'd watch 1, 2, and 3 again. Personally.
I don't hate A New Hope. I'm just let me put that straight. I'm just saying, Empire Strikes Back is just kind of, it's like Mad Max 2 and stuff in it. You just kind of zip to Empire Strikes Back and you're like, okay, we don't even need the first one. Seen it once. Empire's the one.
Can I tell you some more of my changes?
Yes, go on, but in Star Wars now.
Yeah, we talking about Star Wars, or
Yeah.
The film does say set in 2019, and we've recently done Mad Max, and I said one of the things I loved about Mad Max is they didn't give a date. It was a few years from now. So all of a sudden, the film is dated in that element. But hey.
But one thing though, which is quite spooky, they predicted Tokyo 2020 Olympics.
Yeah.
And there would be an end of the world scenario going on. And there was with COVID-19 and the first lockdown. Everyone was kind of like, this is...
Oh, I'd get over it, but...
I'm just saying, You always say sidekicks aren't real. But the evidence is there.
Side
Did you say
or
sidekicks?
Sidekicks, I said, like psychic powers and stuff.
Psychic powers, right? I thought you said sidekicks.
No,
Robin isn't real.
I said sidekicks, not sidekicks. I know what I'm talking about.
The final change from me then is that there are a couple of continuity errors in there, but they're more to do with the animation. So, really good example. Do you know when Canada steals? No, not what's his name? He steals the bike. Yeah, he steals the bike with a girl.
Yeah.
They then get caught by the gang, and the gang sort of rip the girl's top open, beat her up, and she got black eyes. There's a scene then, like a couple of bits later, where there's nothing wrong with her.
And she's got the same top on.
Yeah, well, your top is ripped, but like her face is normal. Whereas like a couple of like shots before that, but like it's one or two tiny little continuity errors. There's nothing. The film is still bloody awesome. Couple of facts, I may as well throw them in there. This normally happens in American films, but not in Japanese films, where the voice acting was recorded first and the animation came later. So it's a little bit different to what they would normally do in Japan.
That is one of the issues, though, because I had this on 4K, right? And they did this. The company that did the 4K did this really annoying thing where they didn't do a sound mix on the Japanese dub. They only did the sound mix on the English dub, right? So me and Prague wanted to watch this in Japanese with the subtitles on because it's better to watch it that way because the mouth movement is more impressive because it goes exactly with the dialogue.
Yeah.
But and I have seen it like that before. The first time I watched it was like that, and it was great. But yeah, that's the one annoyance about. To anyone thinking of buying this in the 4K, bear that in mind.
Due to its unique Japanese concept, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg claimed the movie would be completely unmarketable in the United States of America. But, so think of that what you will.
Fucking jealous cunts, that's what they are. But I hope the Japanese hated E.T. in Star Wars.
And then the final point for me, Johnny Young Bosch, I think that's how you say it, who was the English voice of Canada, went on to play the Black Power Rangers or Power Ranger in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Oh, nice.
So,
well, yeah, did you know as well that this film, it didn't go over budget as well? Like, well, usually have the budgets, didn't they
5.5 million I've got down.
Yeah, but I think a big part of it went over budget just because of the paint. The paint made the film go over budget by like $1 million or something because they were using so much paint in the film. They were like, oh, it was just fucked. Like, but like 160,000 cells of animation.
2,212 shots. Unbelievable.
I think it took like 3 or 4 years to animate as well. They started like the Akira committee in Japan, and they just I saw a making of documentary of this before, and you'd expect it to be like the biggest sweatshop of animators in the world working on this, but it's not. It's like it's a crew of 10 or 12 people animating it. You're like, and I think one of the women that animated on this went on to be like a lead animator on Kiki's Delivery Service and loads of Studio Ghibli films as well. So that's really cool. We should do more anime on this show.
I think we should as well.
We should get a couple. Like Princess Mononoke is a good one. That's like one of the first Studio Ghibli films I saw.
Well, I'd love to, simply because I've done the mainstream ones. I've seen the mainstream films, so I'd like to do at least a couple that you would then suggest, only because you know the genre.
We should just do Urotsuka Doji and just go all in and just that'll get views. Urotsuka Doji, the pornographic anime which came out in the which was one of the
what was the one you watched with me because I hadn't seen it before?
Ad or and, do you say?
Ad.
Oh, Perfect Blue.
Perfect Blue, I say, yeah.
By the same director as Paprika. That is Satoshi
right.
Kon. Brilliant film, that. From 97. Really good film.
It's the one that they base Black Swan on, isn't it? Or like has elements of Black Swan.
Yeah, like Darren Aronofsky, like yeah, but you can tell he's inspired by him a lot, and he pinches a lot, not pinches, but pays homage to like a lot of his shots and camera angles in his films. And later on, yeah, great. We could do Ghost in the Shell, Studio Ghibli. What else is it? Like Street Fighter 2. Loads. We do loads.
Right, we are wrapping up there. So, final question: yes or no? Would you recommend Prog?
Absolutely.
Ad?
Yes.
Yeah, 100% from me as well. Of course, this is yes. I think it's a brilliant film, and if you haven't really watched this genre before, watch this as your first film. So
Yeah.
I would highly recommend it anyway. So podcasts come out every Wednesday. Check out our social media. Check out our YouTube channel, and if you want us to do a film in the future, let us know. Cheers all.